Hey everyone, I am back. It's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. I hope that you've had a really good week. And for those of you who are new to Mental Health Moment with Dr. Hammond, welcome. For those of you who tune in every single Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, welcome back. Thanks for those who are starting to join today. It's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. I know for some of you who joined last week, last Tuesday, I know that I told you all that I wouldn't be live and it would be pre-recorded. However, I am live today. So some of my vacation time got moved around a little bit, some of the tours here. So I am live with you today and I'm happy to be here out of Australia today. I'm in Sydney. So for me, it's 10 a.m. Over here. And of course, I'm still on Eastern time at 8 p.m. Where you are on Tuesday night. So on the opposite side of the globe here, but happy to be with you today on Mental Health Moment with Dr. Hammond. Thanks for those who are starting to join here. And I wanted to show you really briefly because I think it's so cool. It's one of my favorite landmarks before we get started today. And the first time that I'm getting to see it, but if you can see it behind me here, let me try to put my finger in the right place over here, is the Sydney Opera House. So it's been really cool. It's a little rainy here, but that's okay. But really cool to check out Sydney the last couple of days here. And happy Tuesday to you as well. And hi, thanks for those who are still starting to join here. It's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. So again, as a reminder, if you're new to Mental Health Moment, every first Tuesday of the month is specifically devoted to children's mental health. And hi, thanks for those who are still starting to join here. So every first Tuesday of the month is specifically devoted to children's mental health. So today I want to give you some tips of how to really navigate through the process of mental health when it comes to kids. Unfortunately, we're still dealing with not only the stigma of mental health, but especially the stigma of children's mental health. And hi, thanks for those who are still starting to join here. And I still hear a lot of myths and misinformation that's very concerning about children's mental health, especially things like, oh, what do kids have to be stressed out about? And, does mental health really exist for kids and all those sorts of things, which is pretty harmful actually for our kids that are genuinely struggling with depression, with anxiety, with ADHD, with learning disorders, and all sorts of other conditions that are affecting them. And thanks for those who are still starting to join here. I see people are joining here from California, Chicago, Tennessee, Iowa, New York's in the house. So welcome. It's Dr. Hammond here with your mental health moment. And if you're just tuning in, I do want to remind you that I am live today, obviously reading the comments here. So I thought I'd have to do pre-recorded because I'm on vacation with my family this week, but I was able to get on. Thankfully, some of our events got rearranged, so I'm able to be on here today with you live. So happy to do that. Someone said they're tuning in from the Virgin Islands. Welcome. So one of the tips a couple of tips I want to give you today, but one of the tips I want to give to you today about children's mental health is that it is really critical right now that we are working on not only ourselves, which is good for self-care, working on being the best versions of who we are as people, but also teaching these same concepts to kids and teaching them how to take care of themselves. Obviously, it looks different. I mean, mentally and emotionally. So obviously, it looks differently if we're talking about preschool ages, if we're talking about elementary, middle, high school ages, that completely varies the conversation. But what I've seen so much throughout over a decade here working with kids and working with families is a lot of kids do not understand what to do with all of the especially strong emotions that they're experiencing. We see the world in what it looks like right now, you all. There's so much heaviness going on in the world. I know, even though I'm out here in Australia this week, I'm obviously still tuning into global news and unfortunately heard about the mass shooting in Chicago from 4th of July weekend, right? Which it's just mind blowing, whether it's mass shootings, whether it's natural disasters, whether it's wars or whatever it is that's happening in the world, what is happening to our kids, they are absorbing all of that information, but it's really hard for them to understand fully, like we do adults, of what is happening. And it causes a lot of anxiety, it causes a lot of stress. But if we are teaching kids how to manage themselves, how do you manage these emotions when you're afraid, when you're angry, when you're sad? What do you do with that? How do you deal with that? These are the conversations that we really need to be having with our youth. And thank you for those who are still starting to join here, from Virginia and Texas and Chicago. As we just mentioned, someone said, what about adult mental health? Great question. So, for those of you just tuning in, I just want to remind you the first Tuesday of every month is devoted specifically for children's mental health. And the rest of the Tuesdays of the month are, of course, related to adult mental health. But every first Tuesday is devoted specifically for children's mental health. So I'm sharing these tips for you today because I want to make sure, whether you have your own kids, grandkids, niece, nephew, godchildren, you work with children in some capacity, or however we as a community can help our youth, is going to be really, really important right now, especially all that is happening in the world, and especially how our youth are frankly struggling with it, especially over the last couple years, and dealing with COVID-19 and all that that brought. So again, so the first tip for you today is for us to really think about, how do we talk to kids about their emotions? You are allowed to feel angry. You're allowed to feel sad. You're allowed to feel nervous. You're allowed to feel a lot of different emotions, right? But how do you handle that? So, having these conversations with kids are critical. Number one. The second tip I want to remind you of today, when it comes to children's mental health, is really for us to be thinking about, how do they de-stress. I know, for those of you who tuned in last week, we talked about taking take a minute challenge. And for those of you who missed it, you can go to my YouTube page. I laid it out on there, how to do a take a minute challenge. But even for kids, maybe it looks differently. But how do we teach them how to de-stress? How do we teach them how to self-soothe? Because when they're at school and someone is bullying them, or when they're at school and they're upset because of the way a teacher talked to them or a peer talked to them, and they're angry or they're nervous or they're sad, how do they de-stress from those situations? So this is something, and honestly, I honestly at this point in my career, I really feel like it is a gift when we teach kids how to de-stress early, when we teach kids how to be aware of their emotions, because these are skills. And honestly, I know someone mentioned in here, what about adults? These are skills that some of us as adults need help with. So imagine if we taught these things and kids got it early, when they're in preschool ages and understood it, or elementary, middle, even high school ages, and they understood this information. Imagine the value for their life. Imagine how their life could change. Imagine, hopefully, how they would become better and more productive and happier and healthier adults. These are That's why I always say these are gifts that we can really give our children. And yep. And someone said, hi from California and Philadelphia. Someone said, you mentioned ADHD. What are the signs? That's a great question. That's actually one of my subspecialties. So I'm glad you asked about ADHD. So specifically with ADHD, here's my biggest thing on ADHD. Everything is not ADHD. First of all, yes, the signs are when a child is struggling with attention, when a child is struggling with, maybe hyperactivity or impulsivity. You can see it at school, you might see it at home, you might see it in their extracurricular activities, these signs. However, a lot of those signs also overlap with things like depression, with things like anxiety, with things like trauma, with adjusting to life and the stresses of financial difficulties in the family, or divorce, or illness, or moving. I mean, right? So what's hard about ADHD is that really it's critical that this child be assessed, like a psychological evaluation, let's say, to see what is all going on with this child. Is it really ADHD causing it, or is it depression or anxiety, a learning disability, or something else going on? So I hope that answers your question, but it really does get complicated. When I am at the practice in Florida, that's one of the things I do specialize in, is psychological evaluations for ADHD, because And I feel very strong on it because, again, everything is not ADHD. Just because a child is having problems concentrating or a child is having problems in school. Most times when I test children, I would say maybe 50 to 60% of the time it is ADHD, but a lot of times it's a lot of other things. There's a lot of undiagnosed learning disabilities. I see it all the time, which causes a child to not have to have problems with attention or concentration or behavior problems because they don't understand the information that's presented in front of them. That's just one example. There's many, many more. Or depression or anxiety or dealing with something in their family or in their own personal life. So again, well, a while back, we did something specifically on ADHD on mental health moment because there really are a lot of steps to that. So thank you for your question. There's really a lot of steps. It can be very complicated, but a lot of times I think as society we want to make things super simple and quick for kids when in reality they deserve a lot more attention on what is happening with them with their mental health. Someone said thank you. Someone said, "Oh, good evening from Houston. Welcome." Um, Someone said, "Have a child with anxiety and one with ADD and ADHD. Most teachers have no idea how to deal with children with disabilities due to training." Yes, that can be true. I don't want to speak for all teachers. I know there's some really amazing teachers out there. I know there's some amazing schools that are training teachers and educators about things like ADHD and learning disabilities and depression and anxiety. However, to your point, for the person that mentioned that, there are some schools that really struggle with getting this information to staff and to educators. So, because of that, honestly, I would say as a parent or as a caregiver, we have to take the responsibility to try our best to educate that child's teacher. So I'm glad you brought that up as well. A good resource is helpguide.org. Let me see if I can, I don't know if I can put in this chat here, but anyhow, it's helpguide.org. That is a really good resource if you're looking for information. And I'm speaking specifically to ADHD because some people asked about it, but it's a good tool that has articles specifically for teachers to teach teachers about things like ADHD, like, hey, here's what it could look like in a child. Here are some ways that you can deal with a child with ADHD to help them because they may learn in a different way. And here's what it's not, because there's a lot of misinformation, especially about ADHD and children's mental health as a whole. So if someone maybe wants to jot that in the chat for me, that would be great. But it's helpguide.org. If you go on that site, there's a lot of different information, not just ADHD, but you can look at those kind of tools to give information to teachers. And while we're on that topic, frankly, the thing is not just ADHD with kids, but whether it's ADHD, depression, anxiety, or learning disabilities, one of the things that's really, really important, you all, as a community is, and I'm glad that person brought it up, is that we have to make sure that we are properly educating one another. When you learn about reputable, keyword, reputable resources, please share this information with those individuals in your life. Very important, very critical, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. If you Google things like ADHD, there's so many forums, there's so many people saying all sorts of things that are not true. Um, so it's important. And yeah, thank you so much for putting that up there. Yep, helpguide.org in the chat. So it's important again that when you find these reputable if it's an article, if it's a community resource, please share it with those around you, because that's, well, two things I found. One is, depending on the community, sometimes there's not a lot of good resources for children's mental health. But the second part of that, which is really sad and hard, is that sometimes there really are good places, good resources, but we're having a problem sometimes in the mental health field of connecting people to the right resources. So again, I ask you to do that, if you can, when you know of that information, to please just spread good, positive information and reputable information about children's mental health. Someone said, what if you do talk to a child age 13, not your child, just a friend? Um, I think you're asking age 13, not your child, just a friend. I think you're saying if it's not your own child, but someone else. So really, I mean, That's a great question too. One of the things that's really important is that, well, my personal and professional opinion is that we have the opportunity to be mentors, whether it's again our own children, whether it's a friend's child or whomever it is, when we have valuable information like how to deal with emotions, like, you know, a resource that could help someone that has ADHD or depression or anxiety, we could be sharing this information in order to really enhance this individual's life, right? And to really help a parent that you know of, maybe it's a friend with this same information. I think that's really, really important that we do that because, again, there's a lot of stress right now, especially for kids, especially for families with everything that's been happening. As I mentioned on the past mental health moments, for those of you who join every week, it feels like the last couple of months, we've been talking a lot about how to, again, renew ourselves, right? This is another year of healing and recovering from everything that started in 2020, or maybe even something else that's been going on in your life on top of that. So it's the same thing for kids. A lot of kids are still healing mentally and emotionally from everything that's been happening the last couple of years. And hi, welcome here. Someone said that, oops. Um, Someone said, my child was diagnosed with ADHD. We're apprehensive to use medications. So my son does struggle with attention and processing. Are there, I think you're saying, are there certain kind of vitamins? You know what I would say to that, actually? That's a great question. It's actually a common question that I get. I would definitely say to reach out to your pediatrician if you're in that boat, because I know there's some pediatricians in my area where they'll do a certain type of testing to see if there's like a vitamin deficiency and things like that, and utilize certain combinations of vitamins and supplements and that sort of thing to see if it'll help a child's attention issue. So I would definitely recommend reaching out to, in general, because I can't give specific advice, of course, but if someone were in that situation, I would recommend reaching out to a primary care physician to see if they can help in that area. So great question here. Someone said they're here from Algeria. Welcome. Someone said listening in from Charlotte, North Carolina, dealing with work PTSD. Shared with 6 teachers I know in Columbia, Bahamas, in the US. Thank you very much. And someone said, yep, imperative to speak to a healthcare professional. Absolutely. Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for your questions here today. Again, if you're just tuning in, we're talking today specifically about children's mental health. So every first Tuesday of the month for Mental Health Moment with Dr. Hammond is specifically devoted for children's mental health. And then, of course, the other Tuesdays, we're talking about different topics related to who we are as individuals, as adults, and how to really honestly work on being the best version of who you are, because it's a lot, right? That's been happening. But the good news is there's a lot of things that you can do to move to really move forward and help yourself on your mental health journey, the mental health journey that we're all on, but help yourself really to move forward. Someone said they're here from Nebraska. Welcome. Yep. And no problem. Someone said, thank you for speaking about your questions. Absolutely. Someone said, here from Zephyr Hills, Florida. Welcome from Florida. Someone said, where are you located? So today I'm in Sydney, Australia, but I reside in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. Um, so, sorry for Mississippi. Yeah, no problem. So to answer your question, I'm usually, for those of you who know, who tune in every week to Mental Health Moment, usually somewhere. I'm traveling for different projects, but today I'm actually on vacation, taking a quick break, of course, to do Mental Health Moment with you. It just worked out with our vacation schedule. So, and my husband and son were very gracious to say no problem whatsoever. I can, jump on here really quick with you all, take a short break from vacation to do Mental Health Moment, which they know I love to do. But good evening to you as well from San Francisco. And someone said from Mississippi, Ocala, Florida. Welcome. Dr. Hammond here with your Mental Health Moment. So again, some of the tips for today, one is really thinking about when we look at children's mental health, how do we help them to understand emotions, which sounds basic, but you all, I promise you, I saw my very first patient in 2004, And here we are. I've seen a lot of children and families dealing with different things from honestly different areas of the country, frankly. And it's really critical that we're teaching how to manage emotions. Very, very important. And then the second tip, as I mentioned today, is to really to think about having these conversations about stress management early and what that looks like and how to self-soothe. So whether you're a parent, a caregiver, or whatever capacity that you may be taking care of children or know of someone taking care of children, remember, as much as we want to, I have a 9-year-old son, as much as we want to just, kind of shield them from life or take care of them and protect them, there are times when they're out of our eyesight, out of our care, and whether they're at school or extracurricular activity, there are going to be situations where they are challenged mentally and emotionally. And if we teach them how to deal with these situations, we really better their mental health. And again, not just in their adult or not just in their childhood or teen years, but these kind of experiences can help them in their adult years as well. Because think about it, even for your own life, was there a situation that you had as a child or as a teenager that maybe today you're still dealing with and you're still trying to process, right? And it's not a bad thing. It's just that some kids, if they had the resources to cope with whatever life threw at them in their child years or their teen years, it could have helped, right? Not everything's going to be healed in our childhood. We know that, but it could have helped them better on their journey into their adult years. So that's why children's mental health is really, really important. I'm a huge, huge advocate for prevention. Yes, we need the intervention and the services and all that, but I'm also a huge advocate for teaching prevention, which is why I'm having this conversation with you today. Um, so someone said enjoy your vacation. Thank you so much. So those are some of my tips for you today. And I do want to share with you a date. I think I shared it last week as well, that I will be speaking of children's mental health, about promoting positive early children's mental health in Tampa if you're in that area. And that is going to be on Wednesday, July 20th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. That's in Tampa. It's onegoalsummerconference.org. So onegoalsummerconference.org. So I will be the opening keynote that day for that particular conference. The theme this year is putting children and families first, which I'm really excited about, obviously, for this particular conference. So again, if you're in the Tampa Bay area, I will be there. It's at the Hilton downtown in Tampa, but I will be there speaking specifically on early children's mental health and how we can help them. And someone said, yep. My son is 10 and going to 5th grade. And if there's tips to share and there's an email. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So I think that's about it for today. I think that's about it for my announcements. But if you all have any questions whatsoever, you can always either send me a message on Instagram, Dr.Hammond, or Facebook, Dr. Nikisha Hammond, or Twitter, Dr._Hammond. I'm on LinkedIn, on all the social media platforms. You can connect with me on there, send me a message through there, or you can reach me at drnikishahammond.com. And let me move forward here. drnikishahammond.com, and I'm more than happy to try my best to get you a referral to a mental health provider or send you a resource or whatever it may be that you need to better the life of the youth that you know of in your life or yourself as well, of course. And blessings to you as well. Thank you so much. I'm reading your comments here. But again, if you need me, you know where to reach me. And again, every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll be back on Black Women Empowered Incorporated Facebook page, YouTube Live, and LinkedIn Live. So take care of yourselves. And again, I'll just show right over here for those of you tuning in late is the Sydney Opera House, which I'm really excited to visit this weekend, coming up here and tour that lovely landmark that I've always wanted to see. So I'm pretty excited about that. but I'm really excited that it worked out timing wise, even though I'm technically on Wednesday and the 10 o'clock a.m. hour, when I normally am on the Tuesday 8 p.m. hour, but it worked out. So I'm happy that I was able to still jump on Mental Health Moment here live with you today. But again, if you need me, you know to reach me, website or LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any of those platforms. So take care of yourselves. Have a great week, and I will see you all next time. So take care. Bye, y'all.